Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I am delighted to welcome you all here to our sixth in the EDO Roundtable series. We're looking at how EDOs are planning and managing for pandemic recovery, and I am absolutely thrilled to have some wonderful guest presenters with us here today. And with that, I am delighted to welcome the panelists for this sixth roundtable. We have Amy Madison from Pflugerville, Texas. We have Matt Hurlbutt from Rochester, New York. And we have Josh Fenn from Henry County, Georgia. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We are delighted to have you all here today. I'm looking forward to some great conversation. If the conversation we had at the beginning before we went live is any indication, we are in for some really good stuff here today. And we really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start off by hearing from each of our panelists one at a time. They're going to be talking about the things that have happened in their region over the past year, a little bit more than a year at this point. And then we're going to take some questions and get some conversation going. So at any point, if there's things that you want to share with us, please feel free to do that in the questions field in the GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So Amy, I'm going to turn this over to you, and you can lead us off by telling us what's going on in your part of Texas.
All right, thank you so much, Alissa. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and especially with the spectacular panelists that we have from New York and Georgia. Earlier on the call, we were all laughing and talking a little bit about some things that have happened recently. This is my second attempt to be here. I'll just say that. The last time I got froze out. So being part of the whole Snowvid experience today, we hope that we're going to be able to share some interesting things. So I am from Pflugerville, Texas. Yes, that is with the PF. We have a lot of fun there. It is an organization that this year will be 20 years old. We're celebrating after having incorporated as a Texas Type B 4B corporation in August 2001. The state allows a local community to exercise a sales tax addition in order to save as much as a half-cent sales tax for either Type 4B or 4A, and in some cases both. Certain rules apply, obviously, and there's certain things we can and can't do, but basically we act like a developer, and we're able to assist businesses. We get involved in training, business retention, but we also can do some public park and recreation facilities. When they actually exercised the tax for this in our community, we had absolutely no industries, no retail, and no socks. We were the second highest tax rate in Texas, and now we use socks for part of our marketing program, but would say that it has made a huge difference over the last 20 years. Our budget is located there too, that you've seen, it's seen a significant increase. And my team, of course, they're rock stars. I've just am along for the ride. The CDC in Pflugerville, Texas, actually, we work with other partners in order to create and retain primary jobs. I know a lot of the people that are listening today, that's what they do as well. But it is important to have those relationships, and we work closely with all types of groups. And I just want to emphasize the fact that when COVID hit, it was this relationship that we had that helped us to move forward progressively throughout the issues that were thrown our way by partnering with a lot of these folks. And today I want to talk a little bit about those. So our first response was for Main Street. Everybody kind of went to Main Street. The heartthrob was there because, everything was just totally shutting down. And we were able to provide a grant to the Chamber of Commerce and supported them. And we partnered with them and went out and raised money from some of our local developers in order to award $107,000 in that early effort, March, April, May timeframe. But we went from that and actually had some CARES grant money that we then provided to our local corporations and businesses, et cetera, that came from the county's allocation that they received. And this particular program tried to hit all the gaps. There were a lot of things being funded at that time. PPP was available, a lot of people trying all different avenues. And of course, we had the grant locally from the chamber, but this was trying to hit the gaps that had not been hit. And the county also had a program as well. So we looked at 3 different tiers. We also really paid attention to our minority-owned businesses and our women-owned businesses in this grant. It was very successful, and out of that came more interest to work with BCL of Texas in the future. They're a CDC and in the state of Texas, and they have an entrepreneurship program that really melds well with our own, and we are considering a revolving loan program as a result of the relationship that we built, having them as our administrator of that grant. The PCDC actually ran that program, even though we had all those partners involved, and we did the marketing for it, and it was extremely successful from the day we announced until we got closed that window. It was just over 2 weeks. So we had to react very quickly in order to get this off the ground. And this partnership that we developed with PCL actually helped us do that. But that wasn't all we did. As always, you're pivoting, you're trying to do everything you can. And very early, when all this started happening, we started a supply chain roundtable, and we were meeting at 7 a.m. 3 times a week with our local manufacturers and businesses, trying to figure out what we were going to do in order to help them with their supply chain. And that began conversations that we'll talk about in a minute that were related to a grant that we got through Texas Workforce. It's called the High Demand Job Training Grant, but it's only specified for type 4A and 4B corporations. And so we began working with those folks that were really struggling trying to find supply, but they also started developing PPE. We have additive manufacturers in our community, a cluster of those that we have over time actually gone out and recruited on purpose, and it proved up that they were able to pivot quicker than most any other type of manufacturer in order to try to replace some of the issues that we were having in mass and other types of gear. And they did a remarkable job. And as you know, at that time, newspapers were kind of in trouble and laying people off. So we decided we'd advertise it ourselves. So we went out and did the 3D Strikes Back 3 webinar series. We did it all in a month, 3 different webinars. That was back when we really still enjoyed webinars. Just kidding. But I mean, Zooming can get old. But it was really fabulous. We had them come in and talk about what they did: ventilators, masks, shields, you name it. And we really featured them in the 3D City Strikes Back. The 3D printing additive manufacturers were showcased in this program. Our partnerships that came out of the supply chain roundtable, as well as the webinar, actually began to work on trying to start a manufacturing academy in the middle of a pandemic, which was quite unusual. And I'm going to talk a little more about that. But that again was partnership, looking at all those companies that we had been working with, and how can we then help them as they started to grow and receive certain kinds of contracts, governmental contracting, et cetera, and needed employment, skilled people. So we started looking at ways that we could do that even then. And then virtual site visits. We started those as well from a recruitment side. So we were responding as everyone did. I don't think I'm talking about anything new, but I will say what came out of that Pflugerville Manufacturing Academy truly was. We've had our first classes now. We've trained 15 students. I know that's a start, but the local workforce board with the community college to help us with writing the curriculum that met the needs of the local additive manufacturers was key. And it has really developed a program unprecedented in the region and certainly in the state of Texas. And I hope to talk a little more about this later. But in the middle of everything, of course, we were trying to recruit, and we were fortunate that we were working with this company, Amazon, to bring a 3.8 million square foot facility to our community. It came into question at certain points during COVID because, our local county was trying to determine, everybody was scrambling, what's essential, what's not. And at one point it was touch and go that we almost lost this project because of shutting down the construction. But we didn't. And I'm here to say it's really significant impact on our community. It's going to put a lot of those people that were out of work to work. And we're hoping to have our actual opening sometime in August 2021. 1,000 jobs is our largest capital investment at one time ever in the history of our community. And it happened during COVID. Just remarkable. And then there's Tesla. So just less than 15 miles from where my office is, and our community is Del Valley, where Tesla ended up locating. Again, there was a lot of regional collaboration in trying to bring this project here to the region, and a lot of competition across the country for it. We were fortunate to get this factory, and we know that it is going to play into not only the training we're doing, the workforce training to try to get people employed, but also it has really triggered a lot of interest in our region for suppliers, vendors, etc. But other people too have taken note. So while it was the hardest of times, it was the best of times in some ways, a mixed bag. Totally appreciate both sides of that story, working to try to fix it all. But in the end, 2020 ended up being a remarkable year for us. We've never seen anything like this in terms of dollars invested, our total square foot that was absorbed, or the jobs. It was but those jobs are needed, and we think that with our training program that we're working diligently on, Alissa, that we're going to be able to help with that as well. And that's all I have.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate that. I'm going to take the controls back. Actually, Matt, I'm going to pass this over to you because you are our next presenter. And then we're going to take questions at the end, okay? Because I know I've definitely seen some questions come in here, and we'll take a look at them at the end. So, Matt, you should have a little box up there. There we go. Perfect.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll give you a little bit of an overview on GRE and the work that we've done in 2020, and it really goes back in a similar way to what Amy was saying. We were founded in 2002 to promote the region nationally. So we cover 9 counties that surround Rochester, New York. We're in between Buffalo and Syracuse, if you're familiar with upstate New York, under Lake Ontario. We support business growth, so promoting the region for new investment, as well as supporting economic growth in the region, and that key is connecting people to the right resources and the right people to grow their business here in the region, which is captured on this slide. So our population is just about 1.2 million. Workforce is just over 600,000, and current unemployment is about 6%. We did reach a peak of about 12 to 14% unemployment, especially in the hospitality industry in the early days of COVID. And now we, like other regions, are really focused on helping those people get back into the workforce, especially working with companies that are employing people and continue to innovate and advance technologies, especially in medical device, which we've seen some companies not only who are doing testing work such as orthoclinical diagnostics and responding to COVID, but making PPE equipment as well as other essential supplies in the response to COVID. Many of them are in optics and medical device. We've seen significant investments in energy innovation, advanced manufacturing, food and beverage manufacturing, life sciences, especially where our optics, photonics, and imaging, software, IT, data analytics components match life science and medical device opportunities. In 2020, we had 34 project wins and over $500 million of new investment. Prior to COVID starting in the region, we saw some significant investments in software, especially cybersecurity related, web support, and then we saw some early investments from Lifecycle operating a pilot facility here at Eastman Business Park, leveraging some of our legacy assets at Kodak, where they used to manufacture a great deal of film and other chemical assets. Greenlight Bioscience also opened a new operation there, leveraging some of that infrastructure. ProAmpact announced an $8 million investment in a packaging innovation center, and we have also seen advancements from Amazon, who has built a new distribution center, last mile distribution center in the region, is contemplating additional investments. A company that was a former unit of Kodak, Carestream, has advanced new technologies, especially in that area of medical device, where they have taken on business-to-business opportunities, leveraging some of their clean room capabilities and manufacturing expertise to help new products, especially in the testing category and quick testing technologies, come to market here. Butler Till is building they're a local marketing firm building a new facility in downtown Rochester. Gorbel, who's a local advanced manufacturer, has expanded. And Greenlight Networks, which is a fiber optic company leveraging broadband technologies throughout upstate New York, has expanded their headquarters here. All told, we had 2,100 new jobs and 1,500 jobs retained. And from our standpoint, as a regional economic development organization, it is all about team participation. We work with every county of 9 county economic development agencies, including the city of Rochester, our state officials, our chambers of commerce, to really respond to opportunities for business expansion. And during the COVID period, it was really about sharing information about resources from SBA, the payroll protection funds, as well as local efforts to keep businesses open and operating and funded during those critical times, including B2B opportunities, leveraging assets and technologies to help companies innovate and stay in business. Looking back in 2016 to 2020, we've seen a significant increase. We had about 8 wins in 2016, and again 34 in 2020, with about 50 projects, new projects in 2016 compared to 80 total projects in 16. And again, we worked over 189 projects, if you will. That's 189 companies that are looking to expand or come to the region, and we're still seeing a great deal of activity in 2021, as we've seen 8 project wins. Plug Power is a fuel cell technology company that's going to build a new hydrogen fuel cell generation facility here in the region, and that's after announcing a gigafactory that will build the fuel cells themselves, hire 375 people here in the region for that. IEC Electronics was an electronic component manufacturer, usually supplying defense industries as well as medical device companies, has expanded in the region. Hyzon has also announced the fuel cell opportunity and research and development manufacturing facility here in the region, with AMS in the sensing technology, completing a design team engineering project in the region, and Rochester Clinical Research, who has done vaccine-related research on all of the COVID vaccines, as well as some other research, has expanded in the region. So far, we've seen over $300 million of new investment, 330 jobs promised, and 116 jobs retained. And we see a significant amount of activity that continues, as we have about 20 likely wins lined up with our partners on companies that are expanding, as well as evaluating the region for new investment. The other thing that we do at Greater Rochester Enterprise that is a bit unique is we work with the National Center for Economic Gardening to run an economic gardening program. So we target firms that are privately held, especially in tradable sectors that are selling products and services outside the region. They are between $1 to $50 million in revenue, 10 to 99 employees. We have foundational support to provide service to these companies, helping them expand search engine optimization, online marketing, identify new geographies for sales and sales leads, as well as map potential customers and competitors. And we've seen growth from 206 companies served since 2002 of 1,700 jobs and over $350 million of increased revenue. And 90% of the CEOs would recommend that program. And again, these are privately held firms. They account for about 15% of companies in a statistical area, a typical metropolitan area, but 40% of the jobs. And we always see at least 13 to 20 of these companies recognized in our top 100 privately held firms. And many of them are not household names, but are companies that have some outstanding technology, some great entrepreneurs and technologies with the opportunity to sell and bring that revenue back to enhance the region. And we're particularly focused now on serving more women and minority-owned firms through that initiative with some of the foundational support we've received in the past year. And then the other thing that we do is promote the success that we have in the region. Claro Software, the Plug Power investment, Vuzix, which has been leveraging some outstanding visual software and optics technologies, Greenlight Networks, that Thermo Fisher Scientific response to COVID, and CooperVision's new contact lens division. And it's telling that story of the companies that are innovating here in Rochester, not only so our own community knows it, but the world as a whole, as we continue to recruit businesses and encourage investment here in the region. That's it for me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it. And again, I'm seeing questions coming in. This is really wonderful, very helpful. So Josh, I'm going to turn this over to you next because we are going to take the questions at the end. And so I'm just going to, I know you don't have a presentation, but there we go. So you can speak about the things that you're doing.
A few slides. Amy and Matt got me interested, so I threw a few together there real quick.
Okay, so let me make you. Wow, I'm impressed. Talk about turning it around.
We pivot here in Henry County on the fly if we need to. So
okay, there you go. Giving you screen controls, so you should be.
Y'all bear with me just 1 second, so I get this.
No worries.
Get to my presentation here. So, sharing screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen, and there you go.
There we go. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Josh Fenn. I'm the Executive Director at Henry County Development Authority. And just kind of talk about our year in review and where we're going forward here. For those who don't know where Henry County is, we are basically the economic center of the southern metro region of Atlanta. We're about 20 miles southeast of downtown Atlanta, 15 miles from the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, which even through the pandemic, it just came out, remained the world's busiest. Located along I-75, probably Atlanta's best access to the Port of Savannah, which is the East Coast's fastest growing port. And really just the second I get all these facts tied up. We have so many things to brag about. The second fastest growing county in metro Atlanta with over 230,000 citizens. So talking about 2020, you know, if you would have asked me in January when this pandemic started about a year ago, well, we had the year that we had? No, absolutely not. We've been the economic development organization for Henry County and our 4 municipalities for over 60 years. And last year was a record. And we really had some great wins, which I'll highlight a few here in a minute, as you can see. But 10 locations and expansions combined, 2,600 new jobs during the pandemic, 451 million in new capital investment. And some of the names you're familiar with there, we'll highlight a few of those. I share a few wins, including the Home Depot with our friends in Texas over there, with the win that they had as well. They expanded with us with their 5th location here in Henry County. Some of our great project highlights in 2020 to go over some of the things that really hit for us. Purple Mattress. And if you're not familiar with Purple, they're probably the hottest name in the e-commerce mattress facility. If you would have told me 3 or 4 years ago that a lot of people will be buying their mattresses online and getting their mattresses delivered in a box in the mail that a UPS truck can deliver, I wouldn't have believed you. But good gosh, Purple has really kind of set the tone in that industry. This is their first manufacturing facility out of their home state of Utah. We're very excited to have them on board, and they are a great company already. They've just started production here at their facility we announced last summer, and taken a spec build, and I'll get into that in just a minute and how we got to a record year. Another great win for us was Zenith. Zenith is a Korean-based company. Their first U.S. manufacturing, actually North American manufacturing facility. They do have a very broad global footprint, bringing 810 jobs and 108 million into our county. We were really excited about this project because they converted a former Toys R Us distribution center in McDonough, which at the time, at its peak, Toys R Us was one of the largest private employers, not only in Henry County, but in the South Metro region. So when Toys R Us went through their bankruptcy and closure, this was a major hit for our economy. And to get that building revived and actually converted from supply chain to advanced manufacturing was a major win for us. And a big reason we got Zenith is because they sell through a lot of retail channels, including the e-commerce channels of Wayfair, which has one of their main campuses here in Henry County, and the Home Depot, which has 5 supply chain facilities in Henry County. along with the Amazon's growth in Metro Atlanta. So really excited to have them on board with this conversion. It was a very unique building. It was the only building in Metro Atlanta vacant that had a 49-foot clear ceiling height at 1 million square feet, and one of only two buildings in Metro Atlanta at 1 million square feet with available rail already in place. So it's a very unique real estate opportunity, and we're glad to get a manufacturer into that facility. And another great one for us, and I know it's springtime, we're getting outside. We always like to promote our own Made in Henry products here, but Ken's Foods. If you're not familiar with Ken's salad dressing that you see at your store, but another real big name brand is Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. That is for the Southeast and East Coast, is made here in Henry County at their facility in McDonough. They went ahead, and this was actually a great thing in COVID for us, is people ate at home more or needed more of their sauces or salad dressings in individual packets for drive-through restaurants, etc. That increased demand, and that helped Ken's make the decision to do a $103 million expansion of their McDonough campus, our county seat, which was really great. And also, actually, with their facilities, this consolidates some and expands their campus with this new investment. So 40 truck moves a day off of 155. That gives us back some capacities along the 155 and I-75 interchange, which is really one of the main intersections along the 75 corridor between Atlanta and Macon. So again, as I talked about, best year on record with 2,600 new jobs and our best year of investment with a major surge. Some of the other things as well too, let's see, stop sharing screen, I'll just talk, that I want to highlight and what happened with us and how do we get to this record year. It was really interesting. We really, when COVID hit, our first thing was take care of the established industries, make sure they're set, they're okay. Once we got to that point, it was very easy then to pivot and say, okay, we got to recruit more, we got to backfill, because I mentioned Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. A big hit for the South Metro region was the loss of jobs or furloughs at Delta, Southwest Airlines, the supporting businesses in hospitality, et cetera. That impacted all the South Metro counties greatly with unemployment. If you look at Georgia's unemployment right now and where we are, if you back out the hospitality jobs, Georgia has got a very low unemployment rate once you back those out. That's been a major hit for our area. So getting these industries in, getting opportunities in where folks could pivot, they could go to our technical college, get additional training, or for Georgia Quick Start program for quick training, et cetera, was really key. We had some good building inventory. That was well. As e-commerce continued to grow, our supply chain position helped us attract manufacturers that were here. Another great thing that really helped us is the way our leadership on the local and state level handled shelter in place. It was clear, it was decisive, it let companies make the decisions themselves, what was best for their business. That was there. And that's what companies wanted to see. They had to make their own decisions. Everyone had to make theirs, but we've done it. We've done it safely. We've done it well. Our office, we were actually back open 2 weeks after the shelter in place order with a ramp up and back to full staffing in the office within a matter of a few months, getting back to business and being responsive to that. That's also benefited us as well too from other assets that we had. We are home to Atlanta Motor Speedway, which if you were watching Fox Sports this past Sunday, watching the Falls of Honor 500 NASCAR race, you saw fans in the stands. Done safely, over 100, they can handle over 100,000 people for an event. We only had about a little under 20,000 for capacity, limited capacity right there, but we've gotten a lot of sporting events that have come that the major facilities in Metro Atlanta cannot handle right now, like Mercedes-Benz Stadium or the other ballparks. They have come and moved over to Atlanta Motor Speedway because of that capacity. But even our high school graduations and some of our other area high school graduations, we're able to have those ceremonies because we pivoted, we did it safely, we did it well over there. Our film industry continues to grow as well too. As we run out of Netflix and Amazon Prime shows to watch and series to watch, they got to film and create some new product that's out there. Georgia, with our opening back up, really helped with that. Henry County has benefited from that as well too, and you'll see Henry County and a lot of upcoming productions going forward here as we've had the facilities that could open up. But really and truly what it came down to was pivoting, taking advantage of our resources and growing what we had. I think going forward for us, we see that we had a great upswing in 2020 economically. Sales taxes collections were up by 13%. Our job growth is up. Our investment growth is up. Our population growth is up. But we know that this isn't going to last forever. There's going to be, at some point, the economy is going to have a correction. So our intent is to run up the score, for lack of a better term. We want to make sure that we put ourselves in a good position when a downturn does come so that we can weather another storm like we just did. Over on Henry County, we only had one layoff of over 5 people. That was for a total of 65 days. That was it. We're if any stat, we're probably the proudest of that one, and the resiliency of our established industries and business partners here in the community. So, my advice to everybody out there, always leverage what you got, especially in times of crisis. Stay calm. Solutions will present themselves. Don't panic. We like to say that. Keep focused, and that's what we did, and we won, and the proof's in the pudding. But we're bullish on 2021 so far. I've been given grief because we haven't made an announcement yet this year. I'll tell you about one announcement, only one. We're usually about 2 or 3 by right now. So, but we got a few in the hopper that are waiting for the green light to be announced. So we're very, very bullish on 2021 so far. So I know this is a panel and discussion, so I definitely want to get into the Q&A and talk some more with my colleagues Matt and Amy as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you also, Matt and Amy, for your presentations. Really, I took a lot of notes here. All 3 of you are in regions that saw, actually had a pretty good run of things, all things considered, in 2020, which is wonderful. I know a lot of our attendees haven't. And I do have a few questions for you to answer. The first one is a burning question and probably slightly silly, but an important one for you. Amy, what is a Pfluger? Someone wants to know. You're muted. You're going to need to unmute yourself. Sorry. There you go.
Thank you for that question. That was a perfect question to ask. Pfluger actually means plow in German. And so we're still turning dirt to this day. Population 72,000 just outside of Austin, and we're proud of it. So we do a lot of PF activity. It's a future with us, and we're up a village. So yeah, we have fun with the PF.
Play up on that. I love it. Okay, thank you for setting that question.
Just had to ask it. Yeah.
I have a couple of really interesting questions from Bill, and I'm gonna read them both out because I think they play on each other. The first one he asks is, how many investments were carryovers from previous years versus new ones that just started in 2020? And I guess the second part of this is, what type of investment attraction activities specifically have you been doing? And I guess, he hasn't asked this, but I'm going to just say, maybe thinking of course, in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, but especially since we're talking about planning for recovery, like moving forward, how are we doing that? But let's start with the first question here, which is, all 3 of you told us about some of the great things that were happening in your regions, and it's fantastic to hear. Of those investments that happened in 2020, how many were carryovers, or what proportion roughly?
I don't know I guess I'll jump in. They were all investments that were committed to in 2020. So none of them were carryovers, as same case in 2021.
Interesting. Okay, thanks. Josh or Amy, what about you guys?
Of our 10, one was a carryover that didn't look too good in March and came through in July. Everything else was new, and really hit heavy about late March as we were kind of starting our opening back up.
Okay.
And in
Thanks.
our case, everything was 2020.
Interesting.
Just like that. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so then let's talk about what kinds of investment attraction activities were in place. And I guess, and again, I'm adding on to Bill's question here, but to think about things that maybe were started during the pandemic that built on what you already had in place. And now, based on what you've learned, like what are you doing going forward? I don't have anyone specifically in mind, so I'll let any one of you jump in here.
I guess I'll go first. For us, we really, where we were for our attraction program, we believe in a lot of hand-to-hand, face-to-face types of meetings, developing relationships and building off of that in our marketing. And a lot of that went out the door just because of travel restrictions and meeting restrictions, et cetera. But I think one thing that really helped us is doing that a lot in advance. And those relationships we did have, we just had to pivot and modify to the virtual phone call, Zoom call, Microsoft Teams, et cetera. In that, I'm on my to-do list this week. I'm excited because I'm actually booking flights, to get back out there. And I'm trying to remember how to book a flight. It's been so long. We're going to get back at what we do best is tried and true and proven over there. But we got a great story to tell of resiliency, and we definitely want to share that with our friends and partners and potential clients out there.
Okay, thank you.
Alissa, I think our area, what we did, basically, we focused on, we took in-person meetings that we had normally, even in the region and outside the region, and went virtual with that. We did even a lot of drone work so that we would have something to show on certain properties that we knew that people would want at least at first look. I think they're always going to want to come in and walk a property, but having that virtual tour available. And I think the other thing that we did was we tried to focus on trying to capture the energy that we had of that supply chain roundtable that I talked about, bringing all those people together. Had been for years wanting to see at the same table, and they were there in a virtual. They came to everything we asked for. We had their total attention, and out of that, planning for the Pflugerville Manufacturing Academy to help push folks that were unemployed and underskilled into new careers that would provide for the kind of energy needed to get them there and strike while the iron was hot. Unfortunately, people had lost jobs, but fortunately, there are jobs being created. So how do we make that happen? And so the academy, instead of doing that in a physical place like the community college or the high school, we decided to rent space in the facilities themselves so that the manufacturers were helping with that training and getting hands-on interaction with the students as well on state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment that was manufactured right there in our community. I mean, that was just something we probably would not have stopped and taken time and assessed and done if it hadn't been for the issues that we had. But then marketing that program alone has been huge for us in recruitment effort, because what we're doing is we're piecing it together. We also worked with our library, and we have a library program as well that's allowing any employee in the city can apply for a library card and go through LinkedIn Learning and receive training in various ways that really helps upskill them in their own location. But all those things combined are really powerful when you're talking to someone and you're trying to recruit them. So we did all those things and upped our marketing quite a bit.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Great examples. Matt?
Yeah, and I think for us too, we leveraged some of our early wins, even coming from 2019, where we had 33 wins, and we ended that year with over 70 active projects, and that continued on to some of the early wins before COVID with software and those technology firms and the new technology and in energy innovation. And then it's really our team is we've got an outstanding group of people. And even as we went remote, they didn't stop working. So it's that connectivity to local businesses, providing them with resources as things were shutting down, and as especially the payroll protection program and SBA loans were moving forward, and connecting dots. We still had a number of essential firms that were operating during that time, especially in the optics and medical device arenas. They needed people. So connecting them to local assets. And then on the attraction side, in a variety of technologies, understanding what our assets are, where you have FDA approved space, where you have a company that's willing to do a business to business deal on a new medical device. And it's that connectivity to companies in the region and leadership in the region. And it really goes back to the way we're organized, in the sense that the key business leaders and community leaders are supporters of us as a not-for-profit. And it's that ability to make a phone call and to have connections happen and provide knowledge and information that you can't really find in a business list or in a database, and a group of people who don't stop working. So they're passionate about supporting the community, and they really stepped up, as did a number of other organizations, our Chamber of Commerce and our local economic development organizations. So that connectivity and all of us kind of rowing in the same direction was good. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that as we get into 2021, and we have a very full pipeline now. And we're going to leverage what we learned, as well as, just like Josh said, jump back on planes for those other opportunities. We have attraction targets. We've been in discussion with them on a variety of technologies. We've got some outstanding opportunities on business attraction. And it's just a matter of continuing to support them and move them forward.
Okay, so all of you have kind of given really interesting examples about what that looked like. The usual way of doing business, the trade missions, the trade shows, all of those things just stopped, right? So in terms of digital marketing, you've given me examples of what you were talking about. And I like, Matt, your conversation about connecting with the business leaders, having them make calls, having them, leverage their connections. What other examples of that marketing looked like? So when the usual things that we do to attract investment dried up, how did you get noticed? How did you make sure people knew about Henry County and Rochester and Pflugerville when the whole world was there competing for their business?
Actually, if you don't mind, I'll just jump in and continue that story. So when on the medical device side, when Ortho Clinical Diagnostics launched its COVID antibody test, IDEX Health and Science had a key component in early testing in Europe on COVID response, and other companies stepped up, whether it was a new product. The University of Rochester was doing vaccine research in cooperation with Rochester Regional Health. We pushed that story out. And so it was about the opportunity to leverage FDA approved space. If you had a technology out there, we did some list generation. We also pushed that out to site selectors, and to try to tell that story of the companies that were making pivots and adjustments and what they were doing, and their openness to B2B opportunities, where typically it might be hard to connect with one of those larger firms and find out they've got a clean room or FDA approved space and they're willing to enter a partnership with someone who's got a new technology. So it was kind of that storytelling, and that's been the continued focus, the innovation, staying open. The fact that we were the first region in New York State to reopen was significant for us. And as we know that there were particular issues in New York City, the fact that Rochester and the Finger Lakes region really didn't have those same issues, and we continue to operate at a high level, was significant.
Great. Okay, that's an excellent example. Thank you. Amy and Josh, any other specific examples of what that new kind of marketing looked like? What took precedence when you couldn't get on a plane or you couldn't go to the trade show?
It's hard because at least I do. I love getting out and mixing it up with people. And I think, getting on a plane and going where you're going and having that meeting is all very, very important. But I think being responsive to any of our clients that we were working with and any future clients that we came in contact with, building further relationships. It was easier to get a phone call through to somebody. You took advantage of that. Absolutely. You didn't sit around and wait for a meeting to be set. When you could get to them, they were sitting in the same kind of situation you were. And so taking advantage of those kinds of things, I think, were strategies that we approached. But I think beyond that, I think that the ability to do things quickly virtually also led to some real asset building, being able to have those meetings, whether they were by phone or whether they were virtual, and be able to screen share and do all of that remotely quickly and move to the next situation that was there. It gave us the ability to do a whole lot more than we'd ever done before. I think we visited with over 175 businesses one-on-one. I mean, we had mixed. I mean, we're a small community. I know Matt's a big group, and so is Josh. Both of them have larger groups, but ours is a smaller community. And so for us to be able to do that, it meant that our team had to be 100% all the time. And they did. They produced. And so I think using the virtual techniques, we did get some video cut of some of the buildings I mentioned earlier, which helped us. We were able to show those real quickly to someone to get their attention. And then just being unafraid about reaching out to whomever you wanted to talk to. There was a good chance you'd get a hold of them.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Some excellent examples. We've heard very good feedback from clients about the virtual tour capability that we built into all the properties on Zoom Prospector. I know that's when you don't have drone video, at least you can use those Google flyovers. They're automatically there. So great examples. Josh, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think with us, I still have it in my Jeep now. We got 2 tailgating chairs and a table. We had a lot of parking lot meetings. I'm not gonna lie. We really did. It just, again, we could have distance, we could have a conversation. We didn't want to lose touch, but I really think that helped us a little bit, that we were willing to, find solutions to continue some type of normalcy and communication out there with our partners that were, in close reach. Another thing that we did, we got to take advantage of just where our office was located. Our Chamber of Commerce is across the street from us, and they had a large facility that hosted a lot of job and career fairs. We purposely scheduled calls with site consultants, virtual calls, so that we could flip the camera on our laptops and show the street view of folks lined up. Like say, hey, this is a job fair for 100 surge holiday positions that's going on right now. So there's available workforce here. We got creative out there in our marketing so that we could not just for have a call to have a call. We wanted to continue to build the relationships, and that brought the business back, but also just showing a willingness that we would find solutions to make that in-person visit or that in-person meeting or in-person community tour work. One lesson I learned, if you are doing a caravan community tour right now, because you can't have groups and vehicles, talk to your local sheriff or police department to make sure the red lights, you've got a pass-through to get through those, because when you get separated and you're on a Bluetooth conference call, it can get interesting, especially people don't know their way around town. So I knew that once. Again, just pivoting, but also looking for opportunities to make ourselves unique was really key for us, and we'll continue to do that.
So I've had a couple questions from Mark. He says, when you were checking on existing companies, and I'm hearing that from all of you, what did you hear as the most important things to them? What was the most helpful thing to them? And what do you think you should be doing now in the months ahead to help them move forward?
Well, I'll take the,
go ahead.
I was going to just say, I think we're still in a supply chain issue in this country. It hasn't, let up. We have issues that we've got to somehow solve and continue to work with our local manufacturers to get there. During early days of COVID, they couldn't get supplies, they couldn't get certain technologies, or they couldn't get certain equipment, and so they started cross multiplying, and they would take stuff over to someone else to help them. I mean, it started this whole back and forth kind of neighborhood, if you will, virtually, with all those folks that were in our community that, knew of each other, but they really didn't know each other. And so now that we're looking at other supply chain issues, Texas, obviously, we had some issues in Texas just recently with the big freeze. That has really hurt us, and that's hurt the country. With Houston shutting down some of the petroleum manufacturing facilities, et cetera, that's going to cause shortages everywhere in plastics and any kind of petroleum type product. And so trying to figure out how we're going to help them get through that. It's a shorter term, granted, but I've heard that it won't be righted until sometime later in the fall. That's a long time. And they've already been hit once. So I think continuing to try to figure out those inroads where we can take some of the relief off and help them with that supply chain issue is going to be key.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say for us, really early on, it was just clarity of what could be open and what couldn't be, what was essential worker, what wasn't. And again, luckily for us, the state put those guidelines in place, and it was clear. There wasn't confusion like in other states where you could be in a city limits and go into an unincorporated part of the county, and it's a different set of regulations. It was clear across the board, and that really helped us, keep facilities open, keep businesses open, where they could adjust to a safe workplace for their employees and manage, various other challenges that they had, because we were clear and defined up front. But that was the real big question up front. Once we got past that, I think similar to Amy, there are supply chain issues everywhere. I think we're still seeing that. God bless the Port of Long Beach in California and LA for dragging their feet and all the backup, because that's, makes our business on the East Coast port markets booming as the supply chains are shifting, not only, the East Coast, but the Gulf Coast ports that are there. But, supply chain, it affects everything now more than ever. And I think COVID has shown that from not just suppliers, but the resident and the consumer, and understanding what all goes into it, has really helped, put a spotlight on how critical these businesses are to help get the goods and services needed to, keep our country going.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
It's very similar in our case too, especially when in March and April, it was about understanding the essential business list and sometimes perhaps getting on it, and assurance that you could stay open and operational. And then the supply chain issues have picked up really across the board. And then we do have companies that are hiring even during the peak of COVID. So it was getting that word out, and I think reminding people of the essential firms we had here who were operating, and the fact that they were hiring and the skills needed to obtain those positions as people were adjusting to what the opportunities were at that time. So it's a lot of information sharing, and just like Amy said, it's building relationships are critical, and the ability to respond and have good information, and just even in some cases being redundant to make sure that people are talking to people, and we're feeding information to state officials as they were making decisions as well.
Oh, that's important too, yeah.
I want to add one more point. I think we all rely a lot on our people that we hire. We talked today, Josh, you and Matt have said things about, your team pulling through. And I think one of the things that is very difficult, even we see it, is the fact that we've got employees that are actually trying to scramble and do all this, but at the same time, they're either helping their kid with a virtual class, or they're scared to death because they are at school and they're at risk. And either situations, neither one of them is good. And they're stressed, and they're trying to do their job and deliver, and they do in spite of all that. And I think that really, when we look back on this past year, at least when I look back on this past year, I look at my people.
That's great. Yeah, thank you.
I see what they did and how they responded as being pretty really awesome.
During
And I think that happened. Yeah, and then there was no child care. Remember how child care eventually had to be shut down too, and that was limited. And so people that were trying to maintain jobs, so having that whole remote work available to them so that they could do the best they could in the situation, and they delivered more than that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
In the last few minutes that we have here, I would ask each of you to share at least one thing that you were not doing before COVID that's now part of your work that you either started doing and you just feel like it's going to be a part of how you continue doing the work of economic development going forward. Something new or some new way of doing the work you do. Any thoughts on that? Other than Zoom, of course.
I'll say from a personal level, I've never been more excited to get a shot that I got scheduled on Fridays.
Right.
I've been excited, but you know, I think really and truly for me, what has changed, I think, going forward is, you know, how fast we pivoted, you know, and being a, you know, knowing that we can do that, because sometimes you got something that you know, big bad COVID coming down, and yeah, it did a lot of damage in a lot of places, but you know, reinforcing what our core principle beliefs were within our organization, but how quickly we pivoted and some of the tools that we use to pivot, and taking advantage of some of the technologies. And, you know, we're talking about how do we use those going forward, because, you know, Zoom and team meetings are going to go down. Once we get, you know, where we can get back in groups again, we're going to go back to what we're used to. But there's going to be some times where, well, we just don't have time. Okay, you know, instead of, okay, I got to figure out GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, Microsoft Teams, you know, download and all this stuff. Now I can click. All right, let's talk. You know, that's going to be different. That's going to be a little bit different for me, but it's going to be where, you know, to get that face-to-face conversation faster if needed, versus, you know, building time for travel and stuff like that. But other than that, like I said, I think the biggest thing is people being excited to get a shot.
Yeah, right.
I think too, we're using webinar now, and I know it can get old going to webinars all the time, but I think having webinars as part of our platform has been really healthy, and I think that's something that we will continue, not on as often, but I think we will go back to in-person breakfast like we had. But I think the webinars have been a way for us to push out information specifically that we wanted when we want it, gives us that flexibility, and then we can push it out to our own, you know, immediate audience, or even those outside of the region, which we have done, and it's been successful. I think that will continue. And I think the other thing is remote work. I think that we will continue to have a mixed bag on that. I think that's going to be a healthy thing for us, because there's certain types of projects where you really do need to just be head down, tail up, and have that remote capability. And I think that's going to continue. And then finally, I think the last thing would be the relationships we built those because of the immediacy, because it was needed, because everybody was just, you know, didn't know what was going to happen. It was just very uncertain. And the reliability we have now with those people, we can pick up the phone and call them at any point. They were calling me on Saturday, on Sunday, it didn't matter. I was helping them on Saturday, on Sunday, it didn't matter. I mean, they all know now that we'll respond and that we'll help them any way we can. And then they learn to trust and work with one another too, which I think is significant, you know, because now it has really helped to grow the base, the foundation for our community going forward, regardless of good times, bad times, or in between.
Okay, so
Yeah,
resilience, relationships, I love that. Matt, I'm going to give you the last word here. What would you say is
I would
changing?
just say one thing that we do now that we never did before was remind people you're on mute. As we didn't have that problem hosting meetings before, but I will say that both our partners in the region, we've had good turnout using various technologies, which I think is in the work that we do, especially a lot of the work that we do, and I think everybody, Amy and Josh, are the same, where a lot of the work you do in economic development is behind the scenes, and you never know, is that support going to continue, especially when organizations are scrambling from a budget. We've had very good turnout and support through COVID. We certainly have some great results and partnerships, but it is going back to simple things, walking through facilities with an iPhone or another device, touring a facility. We certainly didn't do that before. Everything was very, physically generated. So now the new technologies, whether it's drone technology using GIS planning for those flyovers and other things, I think will be the wave of the future. But it's going to be interesting to see, because I, for one, am eager to get back face to face with people, and I think you're still going to see that as we're all human and we like to be around other humans. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with all these things. And great examples. And as Amy said she misses clapping. So I'm gonna clap for all of you. Thank you all for sharing your perspectives and your experiences here. This has really been fantastic. You guys do great work for your communities, and all of you who've taken the time to attend today, appreciate that. Thank you all for the hard work you are doing for your regions and your communities to keep people employed, to keep businesses open, and to ensure that we've got plans moving forward. I am going to be in touch by tomorrow with a link to the video here and the contact information for our panelists today. So if you have questions for them, I encourage you to reach out. Amy, Josh, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It is very much appreciated. We learn from each other. We always say at GIS Planning, we get our best ideas from our clients, and we know that you guys are the experts, and we appreciate that. So thank you very much. Be safe. Go get your shot, Josh, and we look forward to catching up with you guys offline.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye.